Hello again and welcome back to that handicapping show at bloodhorse.com. I'm Tom LaMarra, joined by Pete Denk, and this week we'll be looking at a couple of races. The first, a major 3-year-old race at Aqueduct, the Gotham Grade 3, $400,000, mile and a 16th. Lots of Kentucky Derby qualifier points up for grabs on this one. And then we'll also be looking at the Grade 1 Santa Anita Handicap, $750,000, 1 1/8 miles for 4-year-olds and up at Santa Anita. The Gotham drew a full field of 12. It's a pretty good betting race. There are a couple horses here that will probably draw most of the action, but I think the talent's pretty well spread out. Pete, how do you see the race shaping up, and who is your top pick?
Well, Overanalyze is the name horse in this field. There's no doubt about that. He won the Remsen, and the connections of Mike Rapoli and Pletcher are going to draw a ton of money here. He's coming off a layoff. He drew a bad post, but he's also the fastest horse in the race, which to me is a little problematic. I wanted to beat him, and I really combed through this field pretty deeply. And to be honest with you, I don't love anything in here to beat the horse, but I also think this is a chance to bet against a low-priced favorite.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
One of the horses, and I felt like I was reaching, whoever I tried to make the case for, I felt like I was reaching, because I think if Overanalyze comes back to his 2-year-old campaign, or even builds on it just a little bit, I think he towers over this field.
Mm-hmm.
But an interesting horse here for me is Sky Captain.
Mark Casse.
Yeah, he finished second to Chero in a Gulfstream allowance race in his last, and that was a really fast race. Now Chero came back; he was nowhere in the Fountain of Youth, but I'm pretty sure Chero bounced off the big effort. Orb, who won an allowance race the same day that Chero and Sky Captain run, actually ran a few lengths slower than this allowance race that Sky Captain was in. Sky Captain rates, I think he knows how to rate and finish. His post is probably okay for the race flow here. I think there's a decent amount of pace in this field.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm going to land on him as a price shot to use underneath Overanalyze. And if Overanalyze for some reason doesn't run or gets caught with an extremely wide trip, which could happen, Sky Captain's going to be my key.
Okay. Yes, Sky Captain, his last start was at Gulfstream Park, 1 1/8 miles, ran his best race yet, actually, to run second to Chero. Mm-hmm. So I can see the value there, and quite frankly, I think with horses like Vijak in here as well, who is undefeated, I think your price will be pretty good. By the way, Vijak attracts Joel Rosario, had been ridden his first 3 races by Cornelio Velasquez. Rosario picks up the mount. So my guess is that he will get a lot of attention here. Kind of a front-end type horse. You already mentioned the outside post for Overanalyze. If he's able to overcome the post, clearly this is one of the Pletcher horses that he intends to keep in New York, I would imagine, to run up to the Derby. So that one makes sense. We have 3 horses entered from trainer Kieran McLaughlin. Always interesting, a couple maiden winners. The horse that I'm going to pick on top is the New York bred Escape from Reality. Improving numbers, ran a good second in the Withers. Actually would have won the race had Revolutionary not somehow managed to find his way through from between horses. I've heard mixed opinions on the Revolutionary race, that number 1, it looked fantastic, or number 2, he was all over the map and he just happened to rally against a mediocre field. I'm not sure about that, but I do think that in the Gotham at least, maybe Escape from Reality, this might be his chance to grab some Kentucky Derby points before he has to run against the big boys. So I think it's a wide open race more than you do, but watch the odds board, of course, and proceed accordingly on Saturday. As far as the big cap, full field of 10, Pete and I were talking about it. We figure Ron the Greek and Game On Dude will attract the most attention. How do you see this shaping up?
Yeah, I think Game On Dude is going to be favored on his home track. There's some cracks in his form, though. He's certainly he's far from unbeatable. His last race looked great, but he didn't beat anyone. It was a tiny field. Ron the Greek has the win over the track. He also has the subpar performance in the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Right.
Both of these at the track and distance. This Santa Anita dirt surface has been playing much more fair this meeting then it played at the meet formerly known as Oak Tree in the fall, in what was the Breeders' Cup meeting. You could not close Breeders' Cup weekend. It was almost impossible. Ron the Greek had no chance then. He's going to find a surface, I think, that is more like the one he won the big cap on last year. That being said, I think all the money lands on those 2 horses.
Right. So you're going to shy away.
I'm going to go a little deeper, and to me, I came up with a 3rd horse who I think can be played to win this race, or maybe keyed in 2nd to at least form an exacta with the big 2, and that's Called to Serve. He's an improving 4-year-old. He's by a Fleet Alex, and he got really good late in the fall of his 3-year-old campaign. That's a time when horses naturally get better, so I think improvement there. I always look for improvement in a horse late in its 3-year-old season. That improvement also coincided with a trainer change to Nick Kanani, who's been known to improve some horses over the last few years. I was looking at some stats. I think he was about 30% over the last 5 years with new acquisitions. And Called to Serve's win in the Discovery and then in the Broad Brush at Laurel, while that's a grade 3 and just a listed stake. Love his late fractions. His final 3 furlongs, coming home in 35-2, 36-1, I believe. Visually very impressive. This is a horse that's been finishing these races really strongly. I think he's got upside. I like that he's got 2 works at Santa Anita, and he was based in the West Coast early in his career.
He broke his maiden at Santa Anita.
So he's my potential play in here, especially if he's if he's a good price, to maybe jump up into the grade 1 older handicap ranks and maybe post a mild upset here. As much as I love Ron the Greek,
I know you do.
I just don't want him at 2-1, and I definitely don't want Game on Dude at 8-5 or anything like that.
Exactly. I think one of the keys here is whether or not Handsome Mike runs hard early from the 2-hole.
Yeah.
I think he could maybe shake things up a little in here. Outside of that, to be honest, most of these horses like to race mid-pack or from far back. What I do like about Ron the Greek is the fractions in the Sunshine Millions Classic were very quick, and he stayed a little bit closer, and he still made his move on the turn and drew away to win by more than 11 lengths. I'm going to go with Ron the Greek, hoping that he saves ground, isn't too far back, finds racing room to be able to move outside at some point. But again, as Pete pointed out, that might be a lot to ask for 9-5 or 2-1, but I will pick him. So
I'm glad you picked him.
All right. So those are the 2 races for this weekend. We will see you next week on that handicapping show. Again, we thank Briz for the past performances. For Pete, I'm Tom. Have a great weekend.